Thank you all for joining today's session. Mediafly and SugarCRM are hosting this April webinar where you will learn how your sellers can access relevant content efficiently, gain insights into selling tools, and track those marketing assets back to pipeline results. So today we've got our experts, Clint Oram, Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of SugarCRM, and Tony Cavadas, Chief Partner Officer at Mediafly. So these are our hosts. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before I pass it over to these two. Today's session will be recorded. You are on mute. However, feel free to drop any questions in the chat box and we will get to them as we are able. But then at the end of the session, we will have an open Q&A. So feel free to bring your questions at that time. So with that, Clint and Tony, take it away.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate the introduction. It's great to be with all of you today. Thank you for taking some time out of your morning to learn more about SugarCRM and Mediafly. So my name is Clint. I've got Tony here, Tony from Mediafly. Maybe as we get things started, Tony, tell me a little bit about yourself and about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, Clint, it's great to be here in person.
Yes.
I know you're celebrating an anniversary this week.
I am. This is my 20-year anniversary from starting Sugar. So 20 years ago, myself and a couple other guys started SugarCRM. We left our previous jobs, got started full-time on Sugar. The actual anniversary of the company is in 2 months from now in June, because we didn't of course incorporate until June 1st, 2004. But yeah, This is 20 years of living the dream.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on that milestone. It was great to be part of your sales kickoff a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Meet all the sugars, the partners, and just feel the energy.
Well, I gotta tell you, our entire organization is so pumped about this partnership that we have between the two of us. I think it's definitely a match made in heaven.
Absolutely.
The two companies complement each other extremely well, not only from a solution perspective, which we're going to look at here in a few minutes and dig into, but from just kind of culture perspective between the two companies. It's really nice to work with partners that share the same values.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. We're pumped as well. And the value we can drive together, building on what you've already done is going to be incredible.
Well, of course, the core of those values is delivering an outstanding CRM solution for companies just like yours out there. And we're going to learn more about that in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, maybe set the stage a little bit further on who SugarCRM is and who Mediafly is. So I'll start off with SugarCRM as an introduction here. We help mid-market companies around the world across all industries automate their front office, every operation across marketing, sales, and customer service. We help companies build pipeline through marketing automation software for your marketing team. And then we help your sales team manage that pipeline to completion and win those deals with a fantastic CRM tool. And then after we create those customers or help you create those customers, we help you keep those customers with a support management system that allows you to track your support cases, your trouble tickets through to completion, and bring together that full 360-degree view of your customers across their initial engagement with you and then becoming a customer and then leveraging your products, your services, and staying a customer. So that's what we do here at SugarCRM. What do you guys do at Mediafly?
Yeah, absolutely. At Mediafly, we are a revenue enablement company. And so what we do is we provide content for anyone that touches a customer and interacts with a customer, right? So forward-facing folks that need to provide content. I think we're all aware that providing content is a way that customers want to engage with us. Customers and prospects want to engage with us now with our organizations as we sell to them. And we primarily do this in manufacturing, consumer products, what we call the gritty industries, where they have a lot of content needs and a lot of interaction with their customers.
Well, we certainly have a lot of customers in those same gritty industries ourselves, but we also have customers across business services and professional services, healthcare, all kinds of different industries here at Sugar. And so when you say content, let's dig into that a little bit more, just to make sure we got clarity there. Like, what exactly is the content that you're helping companies share with their customers?
It could be anything from a presentation. It could be one-pagers or detailed, documents about your products and services. It can be video, interactive content. So we do video really, really well. And I know we've all been in meetings where someone goes up and they click a button and it goes out to YouTube and they get this, all these pop-ups and so forth. We actually just embed everything in PowerPoint.
Okay.
And it works 100% of the time. right? So we've
Nice.
got a lot of experience. You'll see on some of our logos later, but we've got a lot of experience with the motion picture industry. And as you can imagine, we had to perfect video. And so that's a valuable capability that will allow all of your customers to take advantage of it.
Okay. So you help companies share out videos and PowerPoints and Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and PDFs. And when you share those out with the customers, let's take a look at the product here in a couple minutes. Let's talk about it more there. That's great. Yeah. Well, it's not just exciting. In general, we're really excited here at SugarCRM because we've become a customer of Mediafly as well. We love Mediafly so much as a tool, as a partnership, that we adopted Mediafly, and we just finished rolling it out to the company about 2 weeks ago to rave reviews. But let's talk about these problems that companies are really running into, that they need a revenue enablement solution like yours that helps them manage that content. What are the typical problems that a company stumbles across that guides them to you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of them is definitely about this whole buyer's journey, right? The spaghetti that you're looking at. This actually would be nice if it was this easy. I think all the sellers out there, can relate to that.
Yeah, we all like to think of that buyer's journey as this nice linear flow that, you present the right materials at the right time and then magic happens at the end. But I think the reality is a little bit more confusing than that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started selling, over 20, I don't know what I want to say, but over 25 years ago, it was really, customers, they lined up at the door and they wanted to get educated. And they'd spent a lot of time with us and so forth. And now, that has changed, right? Not just the pandemic, but it's a whole new demographic of buyers. It's the digital natives like our children, right? Who grew up with an iPad or iPhone in their hand. And they want to interact differently with us when they buy and when they want to get information.
Yeah, it's really the case that in today's world, it's not so much about going to a salesperson to learn about a product or a service that a company provides. Everybody's educating themselves on the web first and consuming that content. And then they reach out to a salesperson after they're pretty far along that buyer's journey. But there's a challenge in there, right? They know how are you keeping track of who you're talking to? How are you measuring that engagement? It's pretty straightforward to measure engagement when a potential customer comes to your website. It gets really hard to measure that engagement when your salespeople are now engaging with that prospect and they're sending attachments to emails that you never know if those attachments get opened.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's a great point. Being able to figure out who's engaging with what or not engaging. Right. That's almost as important to who is engaging. And one piece you asked earlier about content, we've perfected this ability to have interactive, dynamic video content. And the way I like to say it is we want the content to stand on its own. Yeah. So when that seller's not in the room, that the buyer is engaged and they're like, wow, this is interesting. It's not just boring, static content that I'm looking at. And so that we
almost had to turn that content into an assistant for the salesperson.
I like that, kind of like a digital assistant that's out there working for you, reporting back on, what's being engaged with.
That's great. Outstanding. And so I know in my experience, one of the challenges I often run into as well is, so for a long period of time here at Sugar, I ran marketing. I was chief marketing officer for several years.
Yep.
And my team would create decks or they'd create white papers. And then we wouldn't really know which one of those pieces of content was being used by the sales team.
Sure.
Right. And there'd always be that kind of problem of the shadow content repository of salespeople saying, hey, this deck worked really well, or this slide worked really well, and they're sharing with each other. But the marketing team has no concept of what's going on. And do you help solve that problem too?
We absolutely help solve that problem. It's funny that you use the word shadow. We have a capability called Shadow that figures out all the content that's been created by salespeople. And it tells us like how much is custom versus how much was created by marketing. And but that is definitely a challenge, right? The discoverability.
So you actually track that. I didn't actually know that you're tracking that shadow content specifically.
We absolutely are.
That's nice.
It's a neat feature, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. But on the marketing side, as you were CMO at one point, if you think about being able to get a report, that actually helps you figure out. Like it's so hard to call out of salespeople. Like, what exactly do you need? And salespeople are generally more just in time, like, hey, I got this presentation tomorrow. I need some help. And in this case, you can almost come back and say, hey, you guys keep creating this slide. Would it help if we made this slide for you and kind of analyze the gaps of your content? So you can be a little more prescriptive and I like to say data-driven, right? And I think in the past, before a system like Mediafly, you didn't know what was being used with a customer. And so marketing kind of had this, they were dependent on the salespeople. Like, give me some.
It's a bit of a black hole. You'd throw decks into the black hole. You'd hope they work, but you never knew, right?
That's absolutely right. And now you can come back with quantitative data, right? And then where to go hunt and inspect. And so
I bet you that really helps align sales and marketing departments much more closely together.
Absolutely. A lot of the customers I talk to they're just amazed because we kind of break that silo down. And it's not an intentional silo. It just happens because, sales are out trying to sell and marketing's trying to discover the needs and so forth. And it just brings them together. And when we tie that with SugarCRM, this is where it gets really euphoric because we're tracking all this data regardless of where your seller presents out of, right? Obviously, I love the integrated user experience because as I mentioned, I've been in sales for a long time. The last thing I want is my sellers to have multiple apps on their desktop that they have to manage around.
You know what? You're teeing us up. Let's take a look at the app. You're teasing us with all these great capabilities here. I think we should jump in and actually take a look at Sugar and Mediafly working together.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this, you kind of alluded to this, but on the selling side, if I'm getting ready for a meeting, I need to figure out where I can discover content. Right. And in the status quo, that's typically like a share drive, like a G drive. Maybe it's SharePoint, maybe it's some other system. And
so we were doing at Sugar before. We were storing all of our content in SharePoint.
Yep.
And we were really running into the problem that SharePoint's just not great. It's not the nicest application to use, to be quite honest.
Yep.
And it got really confusing for people, and managing permissions was hard, especially because we were trying to share content out with our partners, right?
Yep.
We have a large partner ecosystem around us, and we wanted to share that content with the partners. And it was hard to manage all of it. And then we had no insights as to what was actually being used.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What we do, you think you're getting ready to get ready for a meeting. You can actually go to this. This is what I call our sales portal, right? And this is embedded in Sugar. And think of this as like the pull approach, right? So I go there, I've got things organized, maybe by my job, maybe by what product lines I sell and so forth. And we structure them in such a way that if you think about, I talk about interactivity and so forth, but think about like Netflix for business.
Netflix for business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can like point and click. So on these interfaces and the portals, you can just basically click where you want to go and use it as if you were using Netflix.
Right.
Right. And so that really helps us drive adoption with the salespeople. And again, when the industries we're in, we've got sellers that are just getting out of school, and we got sellers that are, more upwards of my age, right? So they got to be able to leverage that content.
Upwards of your age.
You like that?
So we're guiding sellers with prescriptive content here. What does that mean specifically? So you've told me a bit about and shown the content library, where everything's being stored and easily accessible. But you go more than just that. So tell us what's happening here.
This is where it starts to get even more euphoric as we come together. And what I mean by that is I'm prepared for a meeting, and right on the opportunity or the account, I've got a dashlet that pops up. And it basically says, hey, Clint, for your next meeting, we recommend this content. Right. So the rep can now, look at that content. They could share it. They could pull slides together and make it one presentation. You can even have templates in there so that you could customize, as a salesperson, but without actually opening up PowerPoint. From there, you can present, right out of Sugar, you can present.
So you're right inside your CRM app. You don't even have to go to another application at all. You want to share the exact right content with a prospect or an existing customer, and it's at your fingertips, is what you're saying.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
That was nice.
These two things, so we kind of showed the push approach and the pull approach. I liked, and I'm putting my sales hat on, and we'll talk about the marketing hat in a minute. But what I like to think here, what the feedback I get from customers is that their reps and even the analysts, validate that something like 15 to 20% of their time is searching for content and preparing, right? And so we can eliminate that by prescribing the right content or putting it into an easy to find, easy to discover portal. You can save a lot of time.
Tell me about that prescribing of content. How does Mediafly know what's the right piece of content to put in front of the salesperson to have them share? What's happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, behind the scenes, there's several different things, but we've got some machine learning set up that kind of learns the patterns. So if you tend to pick video over PowerPoint, and you're searching for something, it could automatically give you more video. We can promote content items, and then we can also tie content items, by line of business, by industry, by, any number of attributes that you already track in CRM.
So you kind of move away from the world of a salesperson having to search for the right thing, and instead the system is just pushing the right piece of content in front of them at the right time.
That's correct.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely.
And as you get all these different pieces of content that you're using and you're sharing them with your customers and you're trying to understand that full journey of evaluation that a prospective buyer is going through, tell me how Mediafly helps that.
Yeah. So once you share a piece of content, once earlier you referenced, sending a PDF and so forth, it goes in that black hole. You don't know if anyone opened it or responded. We actually notify the salesperson that someone's interacted with that content. And what's amazing about it, it's not just, hey, they looked at it. It's they looked at this page for how many minutes, they watched this video to this point. A lot of times customers kind of look at it like the A/B testing of, hey, they spent more time on the product B than A. We need to make mental note of that, or maybe track that in CRM so we could run some activity off that. The other really important piece there is you have a meeting, you send some follow-up, and they kind of go silent for a while. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you get an email that says, hey, Clint looked at your content. Now, let me pick up the phone, or let me
That's right.
reach out to him. I'm on his mind. We're on his mind.
So immediately when that prospect is opening up a piece of content, you get that alert. Huh?
That's correct.
Love it.
I love it. And, one of the things I always do just to be a little cheeky and show off our product, because I hope you feel my passion. I love this feature, but I love a lot of features or capabilities. But when I get that, I usually forward it to the prospect and say, hey, you did well. You scored 98%, smiley face. And they're like, wow. They're like, this is amazing. And then they're also a little unnoticed, like if they share content, I better be looking at it.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Let's talk about looking at it. So we talked a little bit about how you put the right content in front of the salesperson at the right time. We talk about how you can track that engagement with that content. Is your prospect, is your customer actually viewing the content? How does that turn into analytics? How does that turn into insights in the business? Tell me about how kind of the back end of the process unfolds.
Yeah. Definitely. For me, this is really where the integration comes through, right? We mentioned how we can, prescribe content, assemble presentations, share them. And what you're seeing here is where we're tracking that, right? So this integration isn't just an iframe, it isn't just a dashlet. It's also putting information back into SugarCRM. And so all those
putting information back into in what way? What's the information?
It's the information on what content gets viewed. It's information on what content was used with this sales opportunity,
right?
This stage. And so we can really start to get down to what content's helping us move through the sales cycle. Right. So
now you can actually map content created by the marketing team to revenue. And you know what content is actually moving the needle when it comes to revenue.
Absolutely. And if you think about how we started this with this problem, people want to leverage more content and less of sellers. We can track all this, and together with Sugar, it really gives us that information to guide marketing. Right. Mm-hmm. Let's do gaps on what content we have and what content was working well, and now it's not working well. So what's going on? And you have the tools right at your fingertips to drill in and get that information. For me, this is the piece that changes the conversation between the sales leaders and the marketing leaders, and how they work together better and really drive it.
Yeah, it moves it probably from opinions to data, right? The opinions to fact. We know what's being used. We know how it's being used. We know when it's being used. We know what slide people are spending the most time on.
Yep.
And now let's turn that into how we refine the content ahead of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Amazing. Great. That's a pretty good overview of what Mediafly does as a whole. What are some of the outcomes that your customers typically see out of this? So we've talked about the features, the capabilities. We've talked about how you bring together sales and marketing.
Yep.
What's kind of the end result?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the end result is, on the sales side, the biggest challenge is always, how do I get my salespeople more selling time?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's a piece we do really well, because we give the seller back time, right? We're meeting them where they work, right? In SugarCRM on a daily basis, which is really important. So to go to another app to go do this. From there, I mentioned that stat of 20% of their times being saved. A lot of customers look at that and they say, oh, maybe it's not 20%, maybe it's 10%. But my seller, my salaries are X. And they start figuring out what that time value is, and they figure out the savings that they're actually making, so their sellers can go make an extra sales call a week or 5 extra sales calls a week, and be more effective there. With the content and having the interactive content, being able to track how it's working and so forth, we also see customers shorten their sales cycle, right? Because they can provide more content out there. We also see larger deals because they're just able to communicate more effectively the value of their products and services.
Faster deals, bigger deals. I think that's what I want, no doubt about
Absolutely.
it. And then knowing what's actually working as opposed to guessing what's actually working.
Absolutely. That's the side. When I talk to CMOs and our customer base, they're just enamored by the fact that they actually can gauge what content's doing. Right. It's on a commerce site, it's easy. When it's B2B selling and when it's working with the industries we work with, it's very challenging. Because it's not all connected. But together, we do connect that and we do complete that picture for marketing to make informed decisions.
Complete the picture. I love it. That's a great way for us to kind of wrap up here. Julia, I think we've covered all the topics that we want to show. Maybe just one last comment here before we jump into Q&A. So I'll encourage everybody who's joined us now to start thinking of your questions and put those into the chat window there, and Julia will read them off for us in just a moment. But Mediafly has been around for how long now as a company?
15 years.
15 years as a company, and been working with some of the biggest names out there. Tell us about some of the companies that you're working with. What kind of company would a potential new customer of Mediafly enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to point out is, first of all, the industries, right? So you mentioned beyond manufacturing, and I think we've got great overlap there. When I talk to customers, it's typically customers that have a lot of sellers, right? So either direct, indirect, right? We work really well with both, as you testified that you're a client and using it across your channels of go-to-market. Either a lot of products, complex products, lots of content, and basically customers that want this single view, if you will, and single library of bringing everything together. I hear the word a lot, one-stop shop, right? And they want to anchor that around Sugar. I know I hit this point a lot, but it's really important. To drive adoption of both solutions, drive value, it's having that unified experience.
That's fully integrated experience inside of the CRM. I agree. If you can just reduce the number of applications that a salesperson has to interact with and give all those other benefits that we talked about earlier, it's a fantastic solution. And we work with a lot of companies that have huge number of products that they sell, thousands of products, tens of thousands, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of products. And there's so much content that they keep about those products. I can see how Mediafly is the perfect solution to really hone through all the possibilities and get to the specific piece of content that you need. All right, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Julia, that's what we had set up for today. Do we have any questions lined up for us?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Tony, can you share a little bit about the adoption rates with Mediafly? Would you say the interface is pretty user-friendly? Because, you mentioned that users could be someone around your age, which is still youthful, but we're on all ends of the spectrum. So can you tell?
She said that still youthful in a very kind of nice way there. Thank you.
I love that. Absolutely. And I think it goes back to the fact that being able to have the interactive user interface, right? I like to call it, we actually had a customer. So I called it like Netflix for business. We had a customer that came in one day and he said, I just figured it out. Your app is so easy to use. It's a weekend experience. He said, it's, the old other apps we've had, you go on the weekend, you're, using Netflix or Spotify or whatever. And then you go to the office and you end up with like a green screen type of interface.
Right.
Where you got to search and use, codes and things. He's like, this is amazing. Like anyone could pick it up and use it. It's like the grandma thing, right? Like my grandma could pick this up and start using it. And so our adoption is really high because of that. And being able to have, whether it's content that's interactive or the interface that's interactive, we see high nines of adoption. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Next question. So would you say that the next steps after the content access those insights, is that what really makes, Mediafly a robust CRM integration?
So I think what really separates us and I call it like deep CRM integration.
Mm-hmm.
And to me it's separating the iframes or just embedding an application without having the data flow. And we have the bidirectional data flow that I think is really important because we're actually updating CRM. I neglected to mention this, but we're actually updating CRM, not just with what's shown, but we can update that meetings happen. We also email the rep and say, would you like to put notes in? They put notes in, they hit send, it goes right back into the opportunity. And so if you're out on the road, you can easily do that from your phone or.
So you're collecting not just data about how some content is being used, but when it's being used and mapping it back to meetings and calls and opportunity and all that inside of the CRM system. That's going to help drive adoption right there as well. When all of your data is in one place, it makes your life so much easier. Do we have any other questions, Julia?
We've just finished the presentation. I'm ready to save time, shorten my sales cycles, get larger deals. I want to access that digital assistant, as Tony mentioned. So where can I learn more about the solution and get some more tailored demonstrations?
Well, I think that's a great segue to here. You can learn more about SugarCRM at sugarcrm.com, and you can always email us at sales@sugarcrm.com. And for Mediafly?
Yep. You can always go to our website where you say your URL there or sales at Mediafly.
Yeah. I'll make it nice and simple.
Wonderful.
Okay. What about you personally? How can people find you personally? What's the next step to get a hold of Tony?
Yeah. In the beginning of the presentation is my email.
Yeah.
tkavadas@mediafly.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn. This is a topic I'm very interested in, as you can tell, being in sales and sales management for almost ever. So you can reach me that way. Happy to have a discussion and
great.
Talk about your challenges and how we can help.
Well, and for me, you can track me down on LinkedIn at Clint Oram, on Twitter at SugarClint, or you can join my podcast at Fuel Growth. You'll find the Fuel Growth podcast on Spotify, on Apple, on all of the main podcast channels. So please join me on the podcast with my co-host, Lizzie Overland, as we interview sales leaders and CEOs and marketing leaders from companies across the world and have conversations not too dissimilar from what we had today. So I think with that, Julie, we're going to go ahead and wrap up and thank everybody for taking a half hour out of your morning.
I actually had several questions trickle in.
We had even more coming. Okay, well, with that,
yes.
let's go ahead and answer those last few questions, no doubt.
Someone asked, repeating the podcast, that is Fuel Growth. I'll put a link into the chat. They also wanted to know, what is the cost of Mediafly?
Yeah, absolutely. So we price per user per month, similar to CRM.
It's $85 per user per month for SugarCRM and $85 per user per month for Mediafly. And that's the starting price point in there. And we're always ready to have a conversation about how the best way we can fit Sugar and Mediafly into the company. In fact, I think that kind of brings up a point that we missed a little bit earlier that I think I should come back to, is that SugarCRM customers can buy Mediafly directly from Sugar. We're a reseller of Mediafly.
That's correct.
You had a couple other questions in there, Julia?
What does the implementation typically involve, and how long does it take to go live?
Our implementations are really measured in weeks, right? And that's the time to market is generally fast. It's usually figuring out where the content exists today, right? So if we have integrations that we can pull content out of digital asset management systems like SharePoint that you mentioned, and so we need to pull the content in, we need to organize it, build out the portals, which is all done in graphical administration tools.
Yeah, I know for our own implementation here at Sugar, we went from talking about it in December to fully deployed at the end of February. And in there, from our perspective, it would look like just another marketing project in terms of pulling together content and getting it deployed out. The technology was the easy part. For us, the hard part was deciding which pieces of content we wanted to share and what needed to be updated. So yeah, that was just a couple months for us beginning to end.
Yep. So that is the typical implementation.
That's great. All right, Julie, any more questions?
We host Sugar on our own server for patient privacy. Does this only work on cloud-hosted Sugar platforms?
So Mediafly is integrated with both Sugar Enterprise on premise, as well as SugarCell in the cloud. So Mediafly is a cloud solution itself.
Correct.
With all kinds of great capabilities around security and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But in terms of being integrated with Sugar, it's both Sugar Enterprise and SugarCell, both our cloud solution and our on-premise solution.
Thanks
All
for
right.
the questions, everyone. The engagement. We love it.
Yeah, people jumped in. I love that. So we're going to go for our second round of trial close. Just a reminder, you can find us, learn more about us at these websites. Again, as we talked about earlier, Mediafly is a solution that you can buy directly from SugarCRM. We're partnered so closely together that we're reselling Mediafly. And of course, we talked about how you can find Tony on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and you can find me at the Fuel Growth Podcast. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for the second time here. And thank everybody for joining us, and wish you all the best of success here in the months ahead. And we're ready to help you drive growth for your company. Just come and have a chat with us to learn more.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.